It has been 10 days since I planted these seeds in these containers, and the results will blow your mind. This is David Gilmore, known as LDS Prepper, and we're going to show you the kind of results you can get with proper seedling production in your house. It's wonderful to have a greenhouse or a seedling house where you can start seeds, but you don't need to do that. You can have this in your living room or here in my office, and look at the results in 10 days. Look at the results in 10 days. Incredible. As I mentioned earlier in the previous video, I only had about 6 of these sugar snap peas survive being planted in the garden due to mice stealing the seeds out of the soil. Here I have 28 out of 30 seeds germinated and growing here. Huge difference. I've lost at this point now 6 weeks where these could have been in the garden. So had I started these here 6 weeks ago, I would have been able to put them into the garden a week later, being this tall and not having lost any plants or time. I want to show you the effect of light on these plants. First of all, you will notice that the largest plants of every variety is right in the center of this box, and that is because that's where the majority of the light is coming down. So let's take a look from the end. It may be a little bit easier to see. Let's take a look at these beans, for example. Here's a bean plant here on the edge of the seedling flat, and as we get closer to the center, not off to the side of the center, but actually in the center is where we get the largest beans. It's where we get the largest plants here. It's where we get the tallest corn. So light is a huge factor. These grew so fast I hadn't even thought about adjusting the light angle here, which I could do. I could just simply, with this particular VL1 light source here, I can actually angle the light so I have a more even distribution of light to all the plants, and that may have helped these plants here on the sides grow better. However, the key to what caused the results here is proper heat, moisture, and light. So I'll link to the previous video where I get this all set up and show you why it's so important to have a heat mat down here. And I set it at 80 degrees. Put plastic coating over this, which help keep the moisture in. So we have temperature, water, and then when they germinated, I added light. And that combination brought these amazing results. So I need to get these planted out into the garden. These bean seeds are, I think, 10 to 15 years old, so very, very low germination on those. Whereas these sugar snap peas are only a year old and got great germination. Now, in addition to that, all of the warmth, light, and moisture can only go so far without nutrients. This is key. Without nitrogen, the plants cannot do photosynthesis. Without photosynthesis, they can't take up nutrients. The seeds have all the nutrients they need to germinate, but once they germinate, it is absolutely critical that we feed the plants. It's like when a baby is born, we need to start feeding it. So we need to start feeding our baby plants here. So I make up what I call baby food. What that consists of is 1 tablespoon, which is the equivalent of 1 ounce or 22 milligrams of weekly feed, which is made out of the LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix, available at ldsprepperstore.com. This is a key element in success in seedling germination and nutrient-dense foods. So I take 1 tablespoon of the weekly feed, and then I add it into my blender, because this is literally rock. It is minerals, and that's what minerals are rock. And so to help them break up into smaller particles and stay in solution, I put that tablespoon of weekly feed into a Vitamix and I let that blend on high for a minute or two. Then I have very, very small particles that tend to stay in solution. I blend the weekly feed with about a half a gallon of water, and then I add the other 2.5 gallons into a bucket here. And as you can see, there's a little bit of sediment on the bottom, but as soon as I take my spoon here and stir it up before I give the baby food to the babies, then it all stays into suspension or in solution. I've got my wife's watering can here. So as needed, or typically once a day, I'll just go through and water the box. If I see that they need more water, then I will give them more water throughout the day. But simply just going through like this, that is about all the water that they need. By providing them the proper temperature, light, water, and nutrients, I have thriving, healthy seedlings that will go into my garden and provide food for my wife and me. But today, all of these sugar snap peas are being planted in the garden all at once. All of the corn is getting planted into the garden all at once. All of the sunflower plants are going to be getting bumped up so they have more space, which means I'll be taking these plants out of these individual containers and putting them in their own containers because it's too cold for them to be planted outside right now. These other plants here, depending on how much leaf coverage they are covering each other, will also be bumped up. For example, the cantaloupe here, I'll be taking these cantaloupe plants and putting them in their own individual pots. Because if I leave them crowded like this, then they won't get the light that they need. I'll have to replant beans again because obviously we have a very, very low germination with those old beans. I could not be happier with the results here in this controlled environment. Again, you do not need a greenhouse to do this. And as I mentioned, some of these plants are going to go outdoors. Some are going to go in the greenhouse because it's still freezing at night here. I can't plant those outdoors, so I'm going to be taking them multiple plants out of one container and putting them into multiple containers and keeping them in probably the greenhouse right now. So they're out of freezing, but the colder weathers will slow them down from getting too big too quickly. If you want results like this, please watch my other videos I have linked in the description and the comments below this video on how to mix the soil, how to select the seeds, the best varieties, which lighting and heat mats I recommend, and all the details that I go through in following the mint lighter gardening method in growing food as if my life depends on it. This is David Gilmore, known as LDS Prepper. If you are prepared with proper seedling production, you shall not fear what is coming.